Late at night, I was dead to the world when my former boss called. My cousin picked up, said, "He's asleep," and hung up. A heavy, brooding silence followed into the next day. I woke up to 99 missed calls blowing up my phone. The second I texted back a single question mark, her reply flashed. "I'm downstairs." Who would have thought a woman famous for her icy, elegant composure would lose her mind over my cousin's brief words? She had driven non-stop for 3,000 miles through the night, her eyes rimmed with a desperate, exhausted red. Her voice dropped to a low, breathless rasp. "I'm done pretending. Please, don't look for other women, okay? I'm yours, my heart, my body, everything." I was completely stunned. Just 3 months ago, she swore she could never fall for anyone. How did things flip so fast? Everyone in the city knew the legend, the wealthiest woman's top executive was her most lethal asset. No matter how catastrophic the crisis, I was the one who neutralized it with surgical precision and swept up her messes. Countless rivals tried to headhunt me with massive offers, yet I never wavered for a single second. I'm a man who values loyalty to the bitter end. Everyone speculated we were the ultimate power couple, but she shot those rumors down time and time again, saying, "He is strictly my most indispensable partner." I simply smiled and kept quiet. I had been hopelessly in love with her for 8 years, treating her like my North Star. But now, I'm just exhausted. As we left the boardroom together, I stared at the city lights and suddenly spoke up. "Boss, I'd like to take a long-term leave starting tomorrow. To be precise, I was resigning. But I knew Jiang Qiao would never sign off on my departure, so I planned to leave first and ask questions later." Sure enough, her brow furrowed instantly with disapproval. "Give me a reason." I replied flatly, "This project has drained me. I just need some time to breathe." Noticing the dark circles of fatigue etched under my eyes, her gaze softened. "Fine, go home." As the car made a sharp turn on the way back, the momentum sent me sliding right into her. Jiang Qiao instinctively caught me, holding me in her arms. That familiar warm scent enveloped me in a heartbeat. "Why are your hands like ice? You need to dress warmer." I gently pushed her away. "Yeah, I got it." Her brow furrowed at my sudden coldness. "You've been avoiding me lately." It was true. Professionally and privately, I had been making a conscious effort to dodge her. Before I could even formulate a response, she pressed on, asking, "Is it because of the rumors? The gossip about me and Shang Xiaoji?" Shang Xiaoji was the handpicked brand ambassador for one of our subsidiary labels. Lately, the tabloids were obsessed with their alleged secret romance, but I knew better than anyone that it was fake. I shook my head slowly, only for Jiang Qiao to suddenly pull me toward her. She pulled me effortlessly into my embrace, whispering low, "I could never fall for someone like him." I gave a faint, non-committal hum. I know. I knew she wouldn't fall for anyone at all, and that included me. I gazed at the city lights flickering outside the glass, forcing my voice into its most relaxed tone. "Qiao, I'm just burnt out. It's been an eternity since you let me take a real break." In private, she always preferred when I called her that. I once believed I was special to her, but special is a far cry from being loved. On Valentine's Day 3 years ago, I had tentatively asked her, "Shall we head back and celebrate the holiday together tonight?" Jiang Qiao had just looked at me with a cold, amused, mocking expression, stating with pure indifference, "We aren't a couple. Why on earth would we celebrate Valentine's Day?" That was the exact second I realized that, in her world, I essentially amounted to nothing. Even though we were closer than any actual couple, she would never give me the one thing I craved. Cutting off my useless emotions, I stepped out of the car myself and said flatly, "I'm heading up now." She looked like she wanted to follow me inside, her crimson lips parting, but she only reached out to straighten my messy scarf. "Get some proper rest." I squeezed out a hollow smile as a final goodbye. "You still have that social engagement later, right? Don't overdo the drinking." I didn't tell a soul this vacation would be permanent, so long that I'd never return to her side. December 17th, only 2 days left until I head home. Shortly after hanging up with my mother, the doorbell chimed through the apartment. It was the assistant I was training for the handover, his eyes brimming with desperate urgency. "Special Assistant Shen, I have an emergency document that requires the boss's signature, but I simply cannot find her anywhere. Everyone says, only you can reach her. Could you please help me? If this gets delayed, our entire department's performance bonus will be wiped out." I glanced at the paperwork clutched in his hand. It was a crucial project I had already handed over during my transition. I figured I'd lend the company one last helping hand. I reached out and took the file. "Leave it to me." The assistant bowed in gratitude. "Thank you so much, Assistant Shen. I'm counting on you." Once he left, I scrolled through my social feed for a lead. Soon enough, through one of Jiang Qiao's close associates, I pinpointed her exact location. I headed straight there without a second's delay. Arriving at the private suite at Muyun Club, I confirmed Jiang Qiao's presence through the glass. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard my own name being mentioned inside. It was her friend asking, "Qiao, how come we haven't seen that loyal assistant of yours trailing behind you lately?" Another voice immediately chimed in, right? Isn't he the one who always nags you about your drinking? Acts like a protective boyfriend, yet he's nowhere to be seen today. Jiang Qiao responded with cool nonchalance. He's on leave. As those words landed, they were met with even deeper, mocking laughter. On leave? That's rare. I honestly thought he'd be willing to work himself to death and sacrifice his entire soul for you. My expression froze. So my devotion to Jiang Qiao was common knowledge to everyone. To this blatant mockery, she offered no defense. Then, that same person probed further. But seriously, though, you haven't looked at another man in all these years. You haven't actually fallen for that assistant of yours, have you? A sudden, heavy silence descended upon the room. Then I heard Jiang Chao's cold response. Me? I am incapable of loving anyone. Love is the most utterly useless thing in this world. Her voice was as cold and detached as ever, yet it felt like a razor-sharp dagger delivering a final lethal blow straight to my chest, shattering the last flickering ember of love in my heart. I stood there by the door, motionless for a long time. Only then did I turn the handle and push the door open. The moment I entered, every eye in the room locked onto me, amidst their mocking whispers and ridicule. I walked straight to Jiang Qiao without flinching. I pulled out the document and handed it over. Boss, this file requires your immediate signature. I didn't utter a single word about the wine in her hand. My eyes were strictly professional. The air turned stagnant. She shot me a dark, unreadable look, but ultimately signed the papers in total silence. I promptly retrieved the file and gave a curt nod. Then, boss, I'll take my leave now. I truly didn't waste a single extra breath on her as I turned and marched straight out. I didn't look back, not even once. Her friends tried to break the tension, but Jiang Qiao just set her glass down. She sat there completely frozen in place, staring at the door where I had vanished, her face twisted into a mask of pure gloom. December 18th. Only one day left until I head home. I stayed indoors the entire day, packing the final remnants of my life into a suitcase. By now, I had scrubbed the entire apartment completely clean. So clean that when I walk out tomorrow, every trace of my 8-year existence in this place will be. The past was utterly erased. The next day, Jiang Qiao actually showed up on time to drive me to the airport, though our entire ride was dead silent. Finally, we arrived at Liyun Airport. She didn't just drop me off and head out. Instead, she grabbed my bags and walked me right to the boarding gate. 8 years ago, in this exact airport, I chose to build a life with her. Back then, I arrived from my hometown as a complete stranger, and Jiang Qiao was there to welcome me. Now, as I leave the city, she is the one seeing me off. I guess it is a clean break. Suddenly, the announcement blared over the speakers, calling passengers for flight 42109 to board. I reached for my bag. Boss, I will take the luggage now. Thanks for the ride today, I appreciate it. Just as I reached for the handle, she suddenly threw her arms around me. Come back soon, she whispered. I didn't answer, but for once, I didn't pull away. I gave her a brief, gentle hug, whispering a final take care and goodbye. The boarding announcement blared once more, and Jiang Qiao was the first to let go. I grabbed my bags and started walking. I didn't hesitate, and I didn't dare look back. I just raised my hand for a casual wave. It all felt like a completely normal send-off, but only I knew this was our final goodbye. From now on, I will never return here, and our paths will never cross again. Behind me, she stood frozen, watching me fade into the crowd. Even after I vanished from sight, she didn't leave. Instead, she lingered there for what felt like an eternity, waiting until my flight was scheduled to depart. The thunderous roar of the engines filled the air. Jiang Qiao watched through the glass as the white plane streaked across the sky like a broken kite, quickly fading into the vast, empty blue sky. For some reason, a sudden sharp anxiety gripped her heart, as if something vital had been torn away. Right then, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a scheduled email I had set to send. She opened it, and the words hit her like a physical blow. Let us end things here. Attached was my formal resignation letter. Jiang Qiao stiffened in shock. Her brow furrowed into a deep, angry scowl as she stared at the spot where the plane had vanished. Her eyes trembled with intense agitation, hiding a surging tide of emotion. End things here? How could you think we can just end it like this, Luo Chengyu? How can you discard 8 years so effortlessly? At that moment, her assistant approached. President Jiang, the board meeting is starting soon. We need to head to the car immediately. Jiang Qiao finally tore her eyes away from the sky. After a heavy silence, she turned and strode away, commanding, book me a flight to Yunnan province. As partners for 8 long years, there was no way she didn't know exactly where my home was. I leaned against the window, watching the world shrink until only a sea of clouds remained. This time, I've truly escaped the gravity of that city. No more worrying about work projects. No more panicking because Jiang Qiao fell ill, or driving through the night for her sake. There is nothing left here to bind my heart. The moment I finally let go, Relief washed over me, and a heavy, bone-deep exhaustion began to pull at my consciousness. I closed my eyes and drifted into a deep sleep. When I finally woke, I was back in the warm familiarity of my hometown. It had been nearly a year since my last visit during the spring festival, when I only stayed for 3 measly days before rushing back. Guilt gnawed at me. My father passed away when I was a child, leaving my mother and me to survive alone. And now, my mother was already waiting for me at the arrivals gate. The moment we met, she grabbed my hands, furrowing her brow as she scanned me. "Look at you, you have withered away to skin and bones." I forced a smile. "Oh, it is just the oversized clothes. They make me look thinner than I am." I chuckled and wrapped an arm around her shoulder, guiding her toward the exit. She gave my hand a playful swat. "I don't buy it. Since you are home, I am going to nurse you back to health." I nodded with a genuine smile. "Okay, thank you, Mom." Seeing the new silver in her hair, my eyes stung with tears. Honestly, over the last few years, I was so consumed by work that I would skip meals for days, eventually developing a chronic stomach condition. Now, looking at myself, I realize my body is riddled with ailments. But I truly believe everything will slowly mend. From this moment on, I will only invest my love in myself and my family. The second we stepped inside, Mom became a whirlwind in the kitchen, cooking sweet and sour pork ribs, tomato scrambled eggs, and lotus root soup. It was a feast of my absolute favorites. As I helped her prep, our casual chatter eventually drifted to Jiang Qiao. "Chengyu, you haven't dated anyone in all these years. Is there someone special in your heart?" I froze for a second, then shook my head. "Of course not." But Mom saw right through my poker face. "You think you can hide the truth from me? Be honest, is it that female boss of yours?" I laughed, trying to change the subject. "Let's not talk about that, Mom. What if I just stay here and keep you company forever? I'll quit working and stay by your side." Mom kept slicing vegetables, not taking my words seriously. "You have always valued your career so much. Stop joking around and tell me when you are heading back so I can prepare." I took a sharp breath, then slowly let it out. "Mom, I quit. I am not going back." She thought I was kidding at first, but she froze the moment she saw my face. "Chengyu, are you actually serious?" I gave a slow, firm nod, my voice eerily calm. That job was just too draining. My mother stared at me, her lips trembling as she hesitated. She knew better than anyone that her son never feared hard work. I must have suffered some deeper pain, but seeing how calm I was and that I didn't want to talk, she had no idea where to begin. Suddenly, the sizzle of the pan shattered the heavy, awkward silence. "The food is burning." Her attention immediately snapped back to the stove. Fortunately, the meal turned out great despite the tension. After dinner, we sat and talked for hours. The next day, I went to the supermarket with Mom. At the checkout, a familiar voice suddenly called out, "Chengyu." I blinked in surprise, turning to see who it was. "Gu Jingshuan," I exclaimed. "When did you get back into town?" Gu Jingshuan used to be my best friend in college, until he moved abroad. Meanwhile, I had gone off to Liuchen. With the distance, we eventually lost touch. "Hey," Gu Jingshuan's face lit up when he realized it was me. "I thought my eyes were playing tricks. It really is you. I've been back for over a month. I even heard about your legendary reputation as the ultimate assistant, haha." Hearing that title, I just smiled. My mother remembered him well. He used to visit our house all the time back then. She took the shopping basket from my hand. "Chengyu, go catch up with your friend." Before I could even react, Gu Jingshuan was already dragging me away, waving a quick goodbye to my mother and shouting, "Thanks, Auntie." We headed to the vintage cafe we used to frequent as students. Looking around, a wave of nostalgia hit me. I can't believe this place is still standing after all these years. Gu Jingshuan grinned, pulling me into a seat. "I know, right? So, how has life been treating you?" I let out a soft chuckle, "Just the endless grind of work. What about you?" At my question, Gu Jingshuan let out a heavy, dramatic sigh. On paper, I was studying abroad for my master's, but honestly, it was pure psychological torture, Chunyu. That food wasn't even fit for humans. Gu Jingshuan began his relentless, animated rant, while I listened in a peaceful silence. Feeling that long-lost relaxation finally return, it felt as though I'd been transported back 8 years. Once Gu Jingshuan finally talked himself out, he took a sip of coffee and leaned in for some gossip. "Chunyu, are you seeing anyone? Got a girlfriend?" I shook my head. "Haven't found the right one yet. I've loved, I've chased, but it just wasn't meant to be." Gu Jingshuan rubbed his hands together excitedly. "Well, I have the perfect match for you. Interested?" I grinned and teased him. "What is it? One of your own rejected pursuers?" He huffed in mock indignation. "I'm not that much of a backstabber. She's an absolute stunner, I promise you'll be hooked." "Seriously, won't you even consider it?" I laughed and countered. "If she's that great, keep her for yourself." Gu Jingshuan waved me off dismissively. "That's impossible, she's my older sister." I've already asked her to pick us up and drop us home. Decide for yourself after you see her, it's not too late. I didn't take his matchmaking seriously at all. We chatted for a while longer until someone actually showed up to pick him up. The moment I saw the woman stepping out of the car, we both froze in shock. She recovered her composure first, recognizing me immediately. Special Assistant Shen? I snapped out of it with a polite nod. President Gu, what a coincidence. It was indeed Gu Nanji. We had crossed paths several times at the office. She was Jiang Qiao's fierce business rival. I never expected our paths to cross in my tiny hometown. Gu Jingshuan was equally stunned. Wait, you two know each other? I clarified that we had merely crossed paths before. Gu Nanji didn't press further, only noting, it's getting late, get in, I'll drop you off. I intended to decline, but Gu Jingshuan's persistence was impossible to resist, so I ended up in the car. As we drove forward, the atmosphere was a far cry from the stifling silence that usually hung between me and Jiang Qiao. With Gu Jingshuan around, there was never a dull moment. Suddenly, Gu Nanji brought her up. So, Jiang Qiao finally found a conscience and gave you some time off? I replied flatly. It's a long leave, President Gu. Gu Nanji let out a soft chuckle, a rare human moment. Then, Special Assistant Shen, if you ever jump ship, our Gu Group's doors are always open. Unwilling to linger on the topic of Jiang Qiao, I immediately pivoted. President Gu, let's leave business talk at the office while I'm on vacation. Gu Jingshuan chimed in. Exactly. Don't be such a buzzkill. Gu Nanji laughed, quickly apologizing. My bad, I wasn't being considerate. Honestly, I didn't care who I worked for anymore. I just wanted to switch my brain off entirely. I desperately needed a period of total rest. For 8 long years, I had obsessed over being the perfect assistant, all to meet Jiang Qiao's impossible expectations. I had bled too much time and soul into that role. Now that I've cut the cord, I don't know how long it'll take to feel like myself again. I stared out the window as rain poured. The car stopped at my neighborhood gate. Chengyu, you don't have an umbrella? My sister can walk you in, Gu Jingshuan teased, giving Gu Nanji a highly suggestive look. I shot it down instantly. No need, I'll just borrow one from the guard. With that, I darted under the guard post's eaves to ask if he had a spare umbrella. The guard shook his head. He'd just lent the last one out. Talk about when it rains, it pours. I let out a heavy sigh, but as I turned to leave, Gu Nanji's voice sounded right beside me. Let's go, I'll walk you in. I looked up and saw she had already opened her umbrella, standing by my side. Since it had come to this, I couldn't refuse their kindness any longer. From the neighborhood entrance to my building, it was a 5-minute walk. Gu Nanji spoke up, shattering the silence. Xiao Xuan is trying to play matchmaker for us. I exhaled a cloud of white mist. Don't take him seriously. She seemed to grow curious. You truly won't consider it? My specs are quite high. She added, I actually have a favorable impression of you. I chuckled. Strictly about my work ethic, right? Gu Nanji's voice was laced with amusement. And that's exactly why I love dealing with smart people. Suddenly, in the next heartbeat, she cried out urgently. Watch out. Caught completely off guard, I was jerked toward her by Gu Nanji. Right where I'd been standing a second ago, a motorcycle tore past, sending a massive spray of muddy water flying. Before I could even process it, my instincts kicked in and I backed away to create space. But at that exact moment, a hauntingly familiar voice pierced through the rain, drifting clearly into my ears. I froze, my eyes colliding with a pair of sharp, piercing eyes. Jiang Qiao was standing at the foot of my building. I looked away after a single glance. Instead, Gu Nanji spoke first. President Zhang, what brings you all this way? Jiang Qiao shot her a frigid look before addressing me again. Chengyu, come here. I didn't budge, rejecting her in total silence. Gu Nanji curled her lip with a mix of amusement and mockery. President Zhang, do you always police your employees' private lives on their day off? Jiang Qiao snapped coldly, shut up. This has nothing to do with you. Her voice grew even more intense than usual. Chengyu, come over here. Get away from her. I parted my lips, staring calmly at the person before me. Jiang Qiao, on what grounds are you saying this to me? What right do you have? Jiang Qiao's brow knitted tightly. You are my special assistant, my most indispensable partner. That was exactly what I expected. I immediately shot down her justification. But I've already resigned. Her tone turned cold and rigid. I do not accept your resignation. I exhaled a cloud of white mist, speaking with eerie calmness. President Zhang, even if you refuse to acknowledge it, the document has been stamped. It is now legally binding. Jiang Qiao's brow furrowed even deeper in frustration. I turned to Gu Nanji. Thank you for everything. Sorry you had to witness this pathetic scene. Gu Nanji simply shook her head, dismissing it. Just as I was about to say more, my wrist was suddenly clamped in a vice-like grip. Jiang Qiao surged forward into the pouring rain, her voice softening. Be reasonable, Chengyu. Are you seeing this person? Gu Nanji tried to intervene, but I stopped her. President Gu, please just head out now. Take Xiao Xuan home. I had no desire to let this escalate into a public spectacle. It wouldn't end well for anyone. Gu Nanji hesitated for a heartbeat, then handed me the umbrella before leaving. I snapped coldly. Enough, Jiang Qiao. I am genuinely exhausted. The corners of Jiang Qi's eyes flushed scarlet. She stared at me intensely. Exhausted? How have I not treated you well enough? If I hadn't already known the bitter truth, anyone seeing her this frantic and desperate would have felt their heart soften. Unfortunately, I knew the reality better than anyone. Those words from that night echoed in my ears again. I am incapable of loving anyone. The very thing Jiang Qiao looked down upon was what I had craved most. But that was in the past. Everything we had is just a memory now. I took a deep breath and forcefully pried her fingers off me, one by one. Negotiation? Jiang Qiao, forget about all of it. There is no going back to the way things were. Her eyes darkened ominously, yet her grip did not loosen in the slightest. I watched as the hand I just pried away tightened again, and a surge of stifled anger rose in my chest. Her fingers clenched around me once more, a wave of suffocating frustration boiling within me. Since Jiang clearly does not love me, what is the point of this relentless pursuit? A heavy silence fell, leaving us in a tense standoff until my mother's voice shattered the deadlock. Chengyu, is that you? Did you forget your umbrella again? Watching my mother approach with her umbrella, I let out a heavy, weary sigh. I decided to call a temporary truce with Jiang Qiao. President Jiang, in front of my mother, I expect us to maintain at least a civil appearance. She locked eyes with me for a long moment, offering no verbal response at all, but she gradually released her grip on my arm. My mother spoke up with immediate concern. You silly child, how did you end up completely drenched like this? Hurry home with me and get into some dry clothes. If you did not have an umbrella, why did you not just call me? She began pulling me toward the house, only to turn and realize someone was standing beside me. She asked in confusion, and this lady is? I glanced at Jiang Qiao before replying, Mom, this is President Jiang. My mother froze for a second upon hearing that name. Did you come all this way specifically for our Chengyu? Jiang Qiao gave a subtle nod, her elegant camel-colored coat soaked through. My mother's brow furrowed with hospitality. Whatever it is, come inside and change out of those wet clothes. It is freezing out here, you will catch a cold. I knew my mother's soft-hearted nature well. She was bound to insist that Jiang Qiao stay. That was exactly why I demanded we play nice, but I never anticipated she would have the audacity to stay the night. As I was drying my hair with a towel, I watched her lie through her teeth without blinking. Auntie, the heavy storm has delayed all outbound flights. Would it be possible for me to stay the night? My mother hesitated, turning her gaze toward me. I stopped drying my hair mid-motion, stating flatly, President Young is a busy woman with a tight schedule. It is better if you head back as soon as possible. A flight delay would not last nearly that long. Jiang Qiao spoke in a hoarse, strained voice. I am sorry, but I am feeling dizzy and lightheaded. I just need to rest tonight. If it is inconvenient, I will book a hotel. I stared at the woman before me, words dying in my throat. I will go find a hotel room immediately, she offered. I stared at her, my brow furrowing and relaxing in a restless cycle, until my mother finally intervened. Forget it. Staying for one night is no trouble at all. We have a spare guest room. By the way, President Young, we do not have any clothes here that would fit you. If you do not mind too much, you will have to make do with a bathrobe. It is warm enough inside. Jiang Qiao replied hastily. I do not mind at all. I will have someone deliver a change of clothes later. As I watched her disappear into the bathroom, my mother leaned in close to my side. She whispered, Chengyu, why did your boss show up here? Is there some unfinished business at the office, or is she here to win you back? I shook my head. It is nothing, just some minor issues with the project handover. It will all be settled very soon. Truthfully, I had no clue what Jiang Qiao was actually playing at. But regardless of her true motives, from now on we are nothing more than strangers. By the time she finished her shower and stepped out in clean attire, I was the only one left in the living room, reclining on the sofa with a book in hand. For a fleeting second, she seemed dazed, as if she were hallucinating that this place was our old shared apartment. But when I looked up at her, my voice was icy and detached. President Young, using your business negotiation tactics on a man, is not going to get you anywhere this time. In an instant, Jiang Qiao was jolted from her fantasy. The surroundings were utterly foreign to her, and even I had become someone she no longer recognized. She walked over and sat down beside me, stating coldly, once you finish throwing this tantrum, come home with me. I am willing to act as if none of this ever happened. I lapsed into silence for a few heavy seconds before sighing in exasperation. Jiang Qiao, how can you still not understand? I am never going back. Whatever we had is dead and buried, do you get it? She felt as if a massive boulder had crushed her chest, a suffocating weight fueling her rising irritation. Are you no? That is enough. I snapped my book shut, my tone hard and unwavering. President Chengyu, stop calling me by that name. As rain beat against the window, my phone lit up. A message notification from Gu Nanji flashed. The green glowed brightly in the dim room. It was a text from Gu Nanji. How are things going? Jiang Qiao did not try anything crazy, did she? I reached out to grab my phone, but a hand slammed down, pinning my palm firmly to the table. Jiang Qiao forcefully interlaced her fingers with mine, forcing them apart, her expression terrifyingly grim and shadowed. Then, tell me, whose voice do you want to hear calling your name? Gu Nanji's? I knit my brows, unable to break her grip. My voice turned sharp and icy. If that is what you want to believe, then fine. Have it your way. Jiang Qiao's gaze darkened instantly, staring at me for a long, agonizing moment without a word. Just then, the phone screen flickered again. A second message from Gu Nanji arrived. Xiao Xuan was worried about you and used my phone to text. He is just dramatic. It was all a big misunderstanding. Jiang Qiao froze, visibly letting out a sigh of relief. I seized the opening and shoved her away with all my strength, standing up to leave immediately. Her voice was barely a whisper now, sounding like she was talking to herself, yet every word reached my ears. I am sorry, Chengyu. I was just terrified of losing you. Why else would you just abandon me for no reason? I finally reached my limit. Her eyes were filled with genuine, pathetic confusion. Then, because of what? I realized I had let my tongue slip again. Jiang Qiao is the type of person who will never understand, so why should I even bother bringing it up? I shook my head slowly. It is nothing, I am going to bed now. You should get some rest too, President Young, unless you plan on missing your flight tomorrow. She watched my retreating back, feeling as if her heart were being crushed by a massive, invisible hand, squeezing the life out of her. The pain was agonizing, a sensation she had never felt before. She sat in the living room for an eternity, unable to close her eyes. Over the past 8 years, she had truly come to view that apartment where I stayed as her only real sanctuary. It was not because of the location, and certainly not for any professional reason. It was because she knew that I would always be there waiting for her. But now, I was back in my real sanctuary, while she was nothing more than an outsider. The photos on the shelf, and she was just a stranger. The childhood portraits, the awards I had accumulated growing up, the memorial tablet for my late father, she had never laid eyes on any of these. Jiang Qiao narcissistically believed she knew me inside out, but only now did she realize I was actually the one who knew everything about her. After 8 long years of living in each other's pockets, she could not fathom why I chose to walk away. When I finally woke, she had already vanished, just like old times, except here she left absolutely no trace of her existence behind. Her abrupt intrusion and quiet departure felt as if they had never even happened. I quickly settled back into my peaceful, carefree life. A few days passed, and it was now December 24th, Christmas Eve. Back in Lucheng, Jiang Qiao and Shang Xiao met again to drum up hype for their couple image. Jiang Qiao remained as cold and stoic as ever, while Shang Xiao's fake smile cracked for the cameras. The second the event ended, his mask fell. He casually asked, President Jiang, isn't Assistant Shen's hometown in Yunnan? Jiang Qiao, who was about to leave, froze instantly and gave a low, clipped response. Oblivious to the tension, Shang Xiaoze continued, perfect. I'm planning a quick trip there myself. Shen is the most reliable guy I know. I'll just use him as my personal guide to avoid tourist traps. Tomorrow is Christmas, anyway. President Jiang, you're obviously going to find Assistant Shen to celebrate the holiday together, right? Jiang Qiao pursed her lips, offering no answer. But Shang Xiaoze didn't care either way. Well, I won't crash your romantic world for two. I'll head over soon. Everyone assumed she would spend the holidays with me. Even Jiang Qiao took it for granted. Once Shang Xiaoze left, she ordered the driver to head to my old apartment. Ever since I walked out, this was her first time returning. Without me there to anchor the space, that apartment was just a hollow shell. Stepping inside with my presence finally gone, the place had become nothing more than a generic, sterile residence to her. She punched in the passkey digits she had used for 8 long years, pure muscle memory. But as she pushed the door open, what met her eyes was no longer the warm sanctuary she once knew. It was vacant, cold, and devoid of any human trace. Over the years, only when she was by my side could she ever find a shred of peace. But now I was gone, having scrubbed away every remnant of our past. Jiang Qiao couldn't wrap her mind around it. How could two people once so close suddenly become total strangers? Just what kind of devastating event could have driven me to make such a final, painful decision? After all, we once made to talk through any conflict, believing we could overcome any obstacle. She rubbed her throbbing temples and collapsed onto the sofa, which was now draped in dust covers, muttering under her breath, Shen Chengyu, you lied to me. Suddenly, she was jolted awake by the first fireworks streaking into the night sky. The clock had already struck midnight, and Christmas was officially here. On the streets below, Festive music blared from the shops, filling the cold air with a warm, joyous holiday energy. In all past Christmases, I would always cancel all work just to stay home with her. I would buy the perfect gifts and spend hours preparing an elaborate five-star feast. In the biting winter cold, we would huddle close, sometimes watching classic movies, taking quiet walks along the river, or losing ourselves in the glittering lights of an amusement park. Would I really come back to her this year? Once, she wouldn't have hesitated to say yes. But now, she was consumed by a chilling uncertainty. I simply cannot leave me, she thought. I will drag him back, no matter what. Panicking, Jiang Qiao immediately dialed Xiao Hu and barked, "Book me the absolute earliest flight to Yunnan." On the other end, Xiao Hu was jolted awake, dazed for a second before realizing Jiang Qiao was actually coming for me. She quickly tried to reply. Still groggy, Xiao Hu stiffened in shock as she realized what was happening. "Yes, ma'am," she stuttered. "I will book that flight right away." Elsewhere, I was also staring up at the fireworks. I watched each brilliant burst ignite the midnight sky before silently fading away into cold dark dust. I have always loved fireworks. Of the few precious memories of my father, the clearest is of us standing by the river, mesmerized by the brilliant colors over the water. Back then, our faces shone with pure joy. Years later, on the fateful night I met Jiang Qiao, the sky was filled with those same spectacular lights. I truly believed our connection was written in the stars. Yet, after 8 long years, I never heard a single "I love you" from her. Suddenly, Guo Jingshuan's excited voice broke through the air. "Chengyu, you won't believe what I brought." I turned to see him grinning, pointing at his sister, Gu Nanji, who gave a helpless yet elegant smile. Since their parents were abroad, I had invited the siblings to join us. The more the merrier, right? In the past, because Jiang Qiao hated crowds and noise, we spent every holiday in dull, quiet isolation. After years of suppressing my own desires just to please her, I had lost all my energy to actually celebrate anything. Unexpectedly, Gu Nanji leaned in and whispered, "Are you and Jiang Qiao really over?" I offered a calm smile. "We never had much of a connection anyway. I just resigned and walked away. It is that simple." Hearing her name now, I realized I felt absolutely nothing but pure indifference. Guo Jingshuan overheard our conversation and stubbornly leaned in, still trying to play matchmaker. "Chengyu, why not date my sister? Isn't the best way to move on finding someone new?" I shook my head helplessly. "I am not going through a breakup. I just quit my job." He opened his mouth to protest, but my mother's voice cut him off. "Dinner is ready. Come inside before it gets cold." Gu Nanji and I happily ignored Guo Jingshuan's complaints as we headed inside. The 4 of us gathered around the table in perfect harmony. In that moment, I knew leaving Jiang Qiao was the best decision of my life. The next morning, I woke up early to sweep the charred remains of the fireworks. Dawn had barely broken, and the neighborhood was still fast asleep. The world was completely silent, save for the rhythmic scratching of my broom. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind me. I stepped aside to let them pass. But the person came to a halt right beside me, thrusting a gift box directly into my line of sight. "Merry Christmas." In that moment, I noticed she was wearing the very scarf I had given her as a gift last year. Frowning, I gripped my broom tightly, and turned to walk back inside. "Jiang Qiao, don't come here anymore." But she couldn't help grabbing my arm, and the moment our eyes met, she wordlessly pulled her hand back as if burned. She stared at me, blurting out the pathetic excuse she had prepared. "Sheng Xiaozhe, did he really ask you to be his tour guide?" I paused for a second. Yes. In reality, Jiang Qiao had been waiting there for ages. Her car was parked nearby, and she had sat there watching me walk out and diligently start my morning chores. I looked nothing like the stressed man who worked at the office. My face radiated deep peace and fulfillment, and a strange, bitter emotion surged in Jiang Qiao's heart. It turns out that without her, my life has become so much brighter. She knew that for my sake, she truly ought to just walk away, but she absolutely could not bring herself to let go. So she approached me anyway, clutching her flimsy excuse. "Could you be my guide? Just show me around the neighborhood, even if it is only as a former colleague." Those last 2 words seemed to be forcefully squeezed from deep within her throat. It had never even crossed her mind that a day would come where our entire history would be reduced to former colleagues. Without a moment's hesitation, I shook my head. "I can't." Jiang Qiao froze as I denied her. "President Jiang, with 1 word from you, any professional guide would desperate for the job? No need to trouble me with it." Jiang Tio tightened her grip on the gift in her hand, her voice a fragile whisper. "Can we not even be friends anymore?" I didn't hesitate for a single second. She pressed on. "Why? We've known each other for 8 years. Why am I worth less to you than Shang Xiaozhe?" I let out a heavy, weary exhale. "It's different," I said. The corners of Jiang Qiao's eyes flushed red as she demanded to know exactly what made it so different. My lips trembled slightly, but I honestly didn't know where to begin. What was left to say? Should I confess that since you don't love me, I have to leave? That would make me sound like I was throwing a tantrum, waiting for Jungkook to come and coax me back. The reality is, I have truly moved on. I don't want to dig up the past, or how I once loved Jiang Qiao with all my soul. When no answer came, Jiang Qiao's patience snapped. With bloodshot eyes, she grabbed my arm, demanding why as she backed me into a corner. I finally spoke, my voice low. Because I'm exhausted. I don't want to work for you, care for you, or even see you. Just looking at you makes it impossible to relax. Jung Taeho's entire body went rigid. Xiao, watching from the car, saw us locked in this agonizing, endless loop. The sheer tension was making her skin crawl. After hesitating for what felt like an eternity, she couldn't take it and stepped out of the vehicle. Approaching us, she pleaded earnestly, "Chang Yueg, please find it in your heart to forgive President Yang. A few arguments are normal in any relationship, but you can't just keep avoiding each other forever." Before she could finish, I cut her off sharply. "Xiao Hu, you've got it wrong. President Zhang and I were never in that kind of relationship." Hearing this, Xiao He stood there completely dumbfounded. She blurted out in disbelief, "How is that even possible?" I looked at Jiang Qiao. "President Zhang, isn't that right?" Xiao Hu looked over, anxious, her eyes screaming, "President Zhang, please deny it." Her desperate expression begged her to hurry and deny it, then properly comfort Assistant Chen. John Tio's brow furrowed tightly as a single word escaped her thin lips. "Right." I gave Xiao He's shoulder a gentle, reassuring pat. "In the past, President John and I were strictly employer and employee. Now that I've resigned, nothing connects us. Focus on your work from now on, and aim for that promotion to special assistant soon." With that, I turned away. Throughout it all, I was unexpectedly the calmest person there, leaving a heavy, suffocating silence outside the door. It took an eternity for Xiao He to snap out of her shock. She stole several glances at Jiang Qiao, hesitating to speak. Jiang Qi stared down at the gift box, now mangled and deformed in her grip. Her fingers clenched tighter as she remained plunged in a heavy silence. Finally, Xiao Hu spoke in a timid, cautious whisper, "President Yang, what time is our flight back today?" Jiang Tio's voice was incredibly raspy and hollow. "3 this afternoon." Jiang Tio lapsed into thought. Her hand holding the gift rose slightly before falling. In the end, she couldn't bear to throw it away. She tucked it away and strode back to the car. "Let's head back." As the vehicle slowly pulled away, Jiang Qiao leaned back in silence, her dark eyes clouded with an unreadable, somber gloom. Xiao Hu stole several glances through the rearview mirror, trying to find the right words. She eventually couldn't hold it in any longer. "President Yang, Yang Xiao, there is something I absolutely have to say." She pressed on. "President Jiang, Brother Chengyu has stayed by your side for years. How could you not give him even a shred of official status?" Her voice trailed off before she finished, but the crushing weight of the truth was clear to both. Hearing those piercing words, Jiang Tio felt her heart violently recoil. Was this what had been haunting her? That one agonizing, unanswerable question suddenly seemed to have found its brutal answer. No wonder Changyu vanished without a trace. It was because his heart had been shattered to pieces. It was because she never had the courage to say "I love you." Instantly, her blood began to churn with a frantic heat. No matter how she tried to breathe, an agonizing surge pulsed through her, making it impossible to find a moment of peace. Suddenly, she barked a command. "Pull over. Go back." Xiao Ha understood immediately and sped back to my apartment building. Jiang Tio began pressing the doorbell with desperate urgency, yet the door remained mockingly shut. Sensing someone standing just on the other side, she cried out, pleading, "Ah, you, please, let's just talk properly, okay?" I offered absolutely no response. "Ah, you, I need to see you. Just this once, even if it's for the last time." Another agonizing stretch of hollow silence followed before the door finally swung open. I stared at her with cold, vacant eyes, waiting. Jiang Qiao locked eyes with me, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knew I was essential to her existence, but was that truly love? Jiang Tie honestly couldn't tell, because she had always believed love was a useless, sentimental distraction. But if this was the answer I starved for, she didn't mind feeding me the words, as long as it brought me back to her side. Willing to sacrifice anything, Jiang Qiao forced her breathing to steady and whispered those 3 sacred words. "Ah, you, I love you." Hearing that, I was visibly stunned. Jiang Qiao whispered again, her voice trembling. "Ah, you, won't you come back?" She reached out, fingers shaking to touch my hand, but I reflexively pulled away. A cynical smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. "Jiang Qiao, I never imagined you'd stoop so low just to lure me back. To think you'd actually resort to a lie like that." Jiang Seo froze in deathly stillness. She knew I didn't buy it. My gaze remained flat and stagnant, like a dead sea. "Jiang Qiao, is this your best shot? I clearly remember you declaring that love is the most useless, pathetic trash in existence. I spent 8 grueling years proving that very point. Now, she suddenly claims she loves me. What a joke." Since she finds love so worthless, she's clearly using it to buy me back. Young Taeho's voice began to tremble. Ah you, this isn't a lie. I mean it. But I pushed her away, cold and utterly ruthless. Since you said this was our final meeting, then please never show your face here again. Shoving her out without mercy, I added, if this is the end, keep your distance and stop haunting my reality. The door slammed shut in Jiang Qiao's face once again. This time, it felt locked for eternity. Jiang Qiao stood like a ghost before my doorstep, losing track of time for God knows how long. By then, the heavens had opened. She absolutely loathed the rain. The misty gray haze made it impossible to catch even a glimpse of me. Xiao Hu held up an umbrella, whispering a cautious reminder, President Young, it's time. We really have to leave now. Young SEO masked every shred of emotion in her eyes, pretending that soul-crushing rejection never happened as she turned to walk away. Yet the raw, bloodshot crimson in her eyes betrayed a pain that wouldn't soon fade. I was in the kitchen warming up some milk. In my past life, waking up meant brewing a bitter cup of black coffee. But being home, Mom worried about my stomach and insisted I swap the caffeine for milk. A few days later, I was at the airport picking up Sheng Xiaozi. Honestly, I was still a bit baffled. Why on earth would someone like Sheng Xiaozi reach out to me for this? It is not like we were ever particularly close. Our lives only intersected for work, aside from a couple of casual business dinners. Still, I did not see any reason to turn him down. I had plenty of time on my hands anyway, and showing a friend around my hometown seemed like a decent enough way to kill time. The moment Sheng Xiaozi spotted me, he greeted me with a massive, unexpected hug. Assistant Shen, he began, but I clarified that I no longer held that title. Just call me Chengyu. Sheng Xiao blinked, stunned. Not an assistant anymore? I replied with a level gaze, I resigned. This time, Sheng Xiaozi's eyes widened in genuine shock. But why did Jiang Qiao pull a bridge-burning move and dump you? I shook my head, and said helplessly. It was my own decision. And for the record, I was never actually her boyfriend. I was utterly exhausted from explaining this point. Everyone was convinced we were a couple, yet we were anything but. Fortunately, Sheng Xiao did not push for more details. Right, whatever the case may be, we won't let those gossipers win. Thankfully, he dropped the interrogation. Fair enough, no matter the reality, let's just leave all that behind. I glanced at my watch. It's getting late, I suggested. Let's get your luggage to the hotel now, and we can start the sightseeing tomorrow. By the time I dropped him off at the hotel, night had fallen. Sheng Xiao's picked up some drinks, insisting that I stay and have a few rounds with him. Worried he would end up in trouble if he drank too much alone, I decided to stick around. At first, Sheng Xiaozi took small, cautious sips, but as time passed, he grew increasingly bold and his stories began to flow as freely as the alcohol. Let me tell you, on my last film set, that female director was a total creep, always making inappropriate jokes with the male actors. I played the role of a silent listener, nodding occasionally. I took the chance to ask why he sought me out for this trip. Sheng Xiao stared at me for a long beat, then chuckled. Because I don't really have anyone I can trust. I froze in confusion. But within the industry, don't you have a reputation for being popular? Sheng Xiao downed another glass. He shook his head with a bitter smile. No, those people only stay close to me for networking and mutual gain. Only Assistant Shen, you never tried to butter me up, and you never demanded anything from me. I have felt that way since the first time we met. It is rare to find someone like you at a business dinner. After grinding in this industry, it is rare to find someone with eyes so pure and untainted. As he spoke, Sheng Xiao clinked his glass against mine with a soft ring. Bottoms up, let's officially be bros from now on. I snapped out of my daze and gathered my thoughts, raising my glass and draining it in a single gulp. It turns out even a high-profile superstar with a supposedly perfect social life like Sheng Xiaojia has a mountain of hidden burdens the world never sees. I never would have guessed that he viewed me in such a positive, refreshing light. I personally never paid much attention to him beyond work. Only when he had major collaborations with the company did I ever truly keep tabs on his activities. In my previous impression, I just assumed Sheng Xiao's was a carefree, easygoing guy, humble, chill, and totally devoid of any celebrity ego. At times, the thought would even cross my mind that perhaps Jiang Qiao and Sheng Xiao's, being such a big-hearted, laid-back person, with his approachable and grounded personality at times, I truly did believe that Jiang Qiao and Sheng Xiaoji were actually a perfect match. But the reality is, once the camera stopped rolling, their supposed spark vanished instantly. The two of us continued to trade stories and drinks, when Sheng Xiaozi suddenly leaned in with a gossiping grin. Chengyu, give me the real tea. Off the record, are you in love with Jiang Qiao? I offered a nonchalant smile. I used to be. Sheng Xiao did not seem surprised at all. He roared with laughter and threw an arm over my shoulder. Chengyu, seriously, what kind of fool is Jiang Qiao? How could she fail to keep someone like you by her side? Does she even grasp the concept of love? I bet she hasn't even figured out who she actually likes yet. I reached out to steady a wine bottle that Shang Xiaozhen nearly knocked off the table in his excitement. I replied softly, who knows? Bottom line is, she doesn't love me. Shang Xiao poured another round for both of us, muttering casually. If she doesn't love you, then who could she possibly love? Well, half joking and half serious, I replied, herself, most likely. Shang Xiao froze for a beat before bursting into laughter. True. For these high-powered tycoons making bank, how many of them aren't obsessed with themselves? He said. We shouldn't waste another second obsessing over these women. Focusing on our own happiness is what truly matters. I nodded in complete agreement. You're right, that's exactly why I decided to change my life. The two of us continued to drink and chat late into the night, finally drifting into a deep sleep only when dawn approached. By the time I woke up the next day, it was already high noon. I pulled out my phone to show Sheng Xiao the detailed travel itinerary I had prepared. Look, looks like today's schedule is already shot. Sheng Xiao waved it off with a carefree grin. No big deal, vacations are meant for following your heart on a whim. We shouldn't let rigid plans and rules tie us down. I nodded slowly, feeling as if a lingering fog in my mind was finally lifting. Over the following few days, I took him to all the local spots he wanted to see. Our bond grew stronger as we enjoyed each other's company. At the airport, Sheng Xiao hailed me as the ultimate guide. I'm definitely hitting you up for the next trip. I chuckled, realizing how much fun we had actually had. As we said our goodbyes at the terminal, he kept praising me. Next time, it's a date. You're the best. I smiled and waved him off. Have a safe flight. As more time trickled by, I felt like I had finally had enough rest to recharge. I began to casually ponder the possibilities for my next career move, wondering where to go and what kind of path to take. But with the new year fast approaching, I was not in any particular rush to hunt for a job. Instead, I spent my days buying holiday supplies with my mom, decorating the house with red couplets and intricate paper cuts. Our neighborhood was tucked away in a quiet, distant suburb. It was an older community where almost every neighbor knew everyone else by name. People here still set off traditional firecrackers and drop by each other's homes to share greetings. It was infinitely more vibrant and lively than the cold city. I could not say which lifestyle was objectively better, but in this very moment, the long-lost warmth of the community completely swept me up. On New Year's Eve, my mom and I did a massive deep clean, sweeping away the old to make room for the new. I hauled out a huge crate of things I no longer needed. Inside were broken toys from my childhood and various mementos I had brought back over the years. Specifically the items connected to Jiang Qiao. I had completely forgotten where I had even stashed them, items like that very first group photo from the company gala, and the very first commemorative photo from when we moved into the apartment. Back then, I treated these like priceless treasures. But now, as I look at them, they are nothing more than useless scraps of waste paper. I unceremoniously dumped the entire pile into the complex's large trash bin. Dusting off my palms, I felt that this time I was truly purging the old to embrace the new. That evening, my mother and I sat together on the sofa, joining the voices of millions on the television screen for the grand New Year's countdown. The very instant the final second ticked away, the sky outside erupted into a thunderous symphony of fireworks. I squeezed my mother's hand, wishing her a happy new year. She smiled warmly, pressing a red envelope into my palm, hoping I would grow stronger and more successful in this coming year. I laughed, telling her I was too old for lucky money. She smiled gently, stroking my hair, and whispered that to her. I would always be her little boy. Suddenly, my phone buzzed repeatedly. I picked it up to find a flood of celebratory texts from all my friends. Even random business accounts were spamming holiday wishes. In the past, Jiang Qiao was always pinned to the top of my chat, the first thing I saw when unlocking my screen. Now, she was muted, buried deep beneath the influx of holiday spam. I did not even notice her exceptionally brief New Year wish at first. I texted back a few people, but exhaustion eventually took over. I tossed the phone aside and fell asleep. Early the next morning, a knock at the door woke me. I went downstairs to find a courier. He had a delivery for me. I signed for it without thinking. After washing up, I remembered the unopened package. The sender had left no contact information at all. It was completely anonymous. Slicing it open, I found an exquisite, high-end wristwatch that clearly cost a small fortune. I froze. I did not even have to guess to know that this was another one of Jiang Qiao's peace offerings. I instinctively threw open the door, hoping the delivery man was still nearby. I desperately wanted to send it back, but the driveway was completely empty. Sighing wearily, I returned to my room and grabbed my phone. After a brief hesitation, I decided to call Xiao Hu. I told him I was shipping a package his way. Before he could even process this, I hung up. His phone was synced to the car speakers, and from the back seat, Jiang Qiao instantly saw my caller ID. Her brow furrowed into a deep frown, her voice icy as she demanded to know what I wanted. Xiao Hu blurted out the truth, saying I was mailing him something to watch out for. Jiang Qiao understood instantly. I was rejecting her gift and sending it straight back. After years of living in each other's shadows, we knew each other too well. Had I returned it directly, she would stubbornly have refused to take it. Her eyes filled with a storm of complex emotions. Out of sight, she had actually lurked near my house multiple times, watching me from a distance. When she could not see me, longing consumed her. But when she did, she grew resentful of the vast distance between us. She felt an uncontrollable, primal urge to reach out and touch me, so she drowned herself in work, deliberately staying away. For nearly a decade, Jiang Qiao had faced countless obstacles and threats, crushing them all without a second thought. But standing before me now, she felt utterly helpless. What on earth did she have to do to win me back? As the days drifted by, I began exploring a new career path. Gu Nanji heard the news through the grapevine and immediately reached out, offering an olive branch. But I turned her down without hesitation. She teased me, asking if I felt guilty toward my old boss. I did not let her light jab get under my skin. I explained that since I recently resigned, avoiding direct competition was just basic professional ethics. It was true she and Jiang Qiao were rivals, but my loyalty was solely because Jiang Qiao was once my employer. Besides, I wanted something completely fresh. Still, I never expected that Sheng Xiaozhe would actually try to recruit me. He told me he was cutting ties with his agency to launch an independent studio, asking if I would be his head of public relations. The offer was tempting, but I did not want to return to Licheng, so I turned him down. But days later, Sheng Xiaozhe was hit by a massive scandal. I opened Weibo as usual, only to see his name topping the trends. Headlines screamed about his perfect image, crumbling, diva behavior on set, and multiple casting couch allegations. My heart skipped a beat. This was a blatant, calculated hit job. Someone was clearly trying to ruin Sheng Xiaozhe. I had worked with him myself, and he was never the type to throw fits or act entitled. The trending hashtags were complete fabrications, each more malicious than the last. I immediately called him. How are you holding up? What is your public relations team doing? On the other end, Sheng Xiaozhe laughed hollowly. The agency did this on purpose. My luck ran out. My chest tightened with worry. I gave my mother a quick heads up and raced back to Licheng that night. When Sheng Xiaozhe opened the door, he looked completely shocked. What are you doing here? He asked. I looked him in the eye. I am here as a friend to fix this. I immediately started asking for every single detail. He looked dazed for a long time before his frayed nerves began to steady. Working with his staff, I pulled an intense all-nighter fighting the fire. We managed to gain control. The smear campaign was mostly neutralized. As everyone finally exhaled in relief, Sheng Xiaozhe threw an arm around me, his eyes glistening. I stiffened for a split second, but quickly relaxed, patting his back reassuringly. It is going to be okay. Lies cannot be turned into evidence if we did nothing wrong. But the proof they forged is being treated like gospel. In my exhausted state, it felt like we were back in that hotel room where he had had too much to drink, sobbing and laughing. From that moment, I knew he placed his absolute trust in me. I do not have many true friends, so if Sheng Xiao's appreciates me, I will return that loyalty. There was no time to sleep, and I did not dare rest anyway. I kept my eyes glued to the trending topics online until I stumbled upon my own name. Commenters wrote that this public relations style felt exactly like my old work as the legendary special assistant to Jiang Qiao. The vibes were identical. I totally shipped them. President Jiang must have sent him because she worries about Sheng Xiaozhe. A viral thread claimed she sent me out of pity for him. The post explicitly named me, and a swarm of people immediately jumped on the bandwagon. Delusional fans were screaming about their ship sailing. I scanned the comments numbly, showing no emotion. Sheng Xiaozhe scoffed. They will swallow any garbage theory, won't they? They are starving for drama. I chuckled. It just proves you two look good together. A few minutes later, the hot search refreshed with a new post from Jiang Qiao herself. Sheng Xiaozhe and I are purely professional. She had actually taken the initiative to personally demolish their on-screen romance. We were both stunned. He joked, "Don't tell me she posted that just for you." I shook my head. Maybe it is because you are radioactive with scandals right now. She probably sees no profit in being linked to you anymore. He faked an offended pout. Ouch, why so brutally honest? Before I could apologize, he let out a heavy, weary sigh. But you are right, business is business. The sun is up, great work, everyone. Breakfast is on me, then everyone go home and crash. The crew piled out of the cars to grab food. I was the last one to step onto the pavement. Just as I started heading inside, a voice suddenly cut through the air. Brother Chengyu, it really is you. My footsteps halted. Turning around, I was faced with two incredibly familiar silhouettes. I could not help but think how small this city really is. Sheng Xiao? My crew noticed I was lagging behind. Looking back, his eyes locked onto Cheng Chu. He hesitated for a moment, then decided not to interfere, choosing instead to wait patiently nearby. John Taylor took the initiative and stepped toward me. Hey you? I looked away and turned to leave. Sorry, but I am too busy right now for a trip down memory lane. Mary Lane blocked my path, her voice dropping to a whisper. Come back. That special assistant position has always been reserved for you. I replied flatly, I am honored, but I know I no longer need it. I stepped around her and walked away. After making it clear that we were finally done, I brushed past her to keep moving, but Jiang Qiao suddenly grabbed my hand. Hey you, just trust me this once. I stared back at her. Trust you with what, exactly? She gazed deeply into my eyes. Her eyes swirled with a mess of complicated emotions I could not begin to untangle. She whispered, I love you, but it felt like a sick joke. President Jiang, that is not even remotely funny. Please let go, I am exhausted. Her grip finally loosened, her eyes trembling as she watched me walk through the doors. Her face fell, darkening into a somber gloom. Shang Xiaozhe's voice drifted over. If you cannot even handle a little rejection like this, President Jiang, I suggest you just give up already. She snapped out of her trance and shot him a startled look. For once, she actually initiated a conversation with him. Since when did you two become so close? Shang Xiao waved his hand dismissively. This is strictly between us men, President Jiang. You had best stay out of it. He realized long ago that she loved me, but he never imagined that we had never actually made things official. Realizing this, he shot her a piercing look. This is exactly what you deserve. So suck it up and deal with it. Without giving her a chance to retort, he hurried off to catch up with me. Jun Tao stood frozen, her brow furrowed deep, her gaze clouded with an unreadable darkness. Sheng Xiao was right. She had been far too arrogant and self-centered. No matter what path I chose, she had no right to complain. But giving up on me was simply not an option. Just as Shang Xiao pointed out, if she could not stomach a minor setback, she was not worthy of mentioning love. Once I finished cleaning up the mess for Shang Xiaozhe, I headed straight back to my hometown. I had sworn never to return to that city. Going back temporarily was already breaking my own rules. On my second day back in Yunnan, I suddenly received a job offer out of the blue. But I had been so swamped lately that I had not reached out to a single company, let alone send a resume. I had been too preoccupied to talk to any firm. I instinctively dismissed it as some scammer's spam and deleted the email without a second thought. To my surprise, the exact same email popped up in my inbox every single morning for days. Even the sender remained stubbornly the same. Are scammers really this persistent? Driven by curiosity, I finally opened it and cross-referenced the address with official business records. It was a legitimate offer, and in that moment, everything clicked. I understood why they were so obsessed with hiring me. This company was a newly launched subsidiary of the Jiang Group right here in Yunnan. What is more, the CEO of the Jiang Group, Jiang Qiao, had personally come down to manage this branch. She had actually moved to Yunnan permanently, not just for a visit. I stared at the screen for a few silent seconds before deleting the email again. I even blacklisted the sender. I truly cannot fathom the point of Jiang Qiao's relentless stalking. Why can she not just get it through her head? There is no going back. It is absolutely impossible. The next day, I started working at a local company near my house. My life settled into a peaceful, steady routine. A significant amount of time passed, and Jiang Qiao had not shown her face once. I assumed she had finally thrown in the towel and given up, letting a wave of relief wash over me. But that night, while scrolling through a group chat, the brutal truth hit me. The Jiang Group was spiraling into a massive crisis. My chest tightened instantly with instinctive concern. As one of the original founders of the Jiang Group, I naturally cared about its survival more than anyone else. I dialed Xiao Hei's number immediately. Is the company really in that much trouble? On the other end, Xiao Hei was so frantic her words were tripping over each other. Brother Chengyu, it is the real deal. President Jiang moved here to manage the branch, and you know how well she can do. But now several backstabbing shareholders at the headquarters pulled some shady moves. They are plotting with competitors to stage a hostile takeover of the Jiang Group at a bargain price. A bitter sting of guilt pierced my heart. If she had not chased after me, Jiang Qiao would have never left the main office. Xiao Hei pleaded desperately, Brother Chengyu, this is eating me alive. If not for me, she would not be in this mess. Xiao Hei begged, can you please come back and help us survive this storm? I am so swamped and President Jiang has not slept in days. I have to go, the chaos is calling, and I need to get back to work. Goodbye, Brother Chengyu. I could hear the frantic shouting and ringing phones in the background. Staring at the blank screen, a bitter taste filled my mouth. What should I do? Returning to the Jiang Group meant our lives would inevitably become entangled again. But if I turn a blind eye, all the blood, sweat, and tears I poured into that company will go up in smoke, and loyal staff like Xiao Hei will suffer the most. I did not sleep a wink that night. By dawn, I handed in my resignation. I chose to stand with the Jiang Group to fight through this life or death crisis. The moment Jiang Qiao saw me, Her bloodshot, weary eyes flickered with a desperate hope. You? I shot her a fleeting glance and flatly suggested. You should get some sleep first. She stubbornly refused. No need. I furrowed my brow, staring at her haggard face. Hesitant to speak my mind, I remained silent, turning my back to coordinate with Xiao He. Jiang Qiao watched me with a gaze bordering on greed, forcing herself to endure yet another sleepless night. Eventually, Xiao He could not bear to watch her suffer anymore, and secretly slipped half a sleeping pill into her coffee, finally letting Jiang Qiao drift off for a few meager hours. The very second she jolted awake, her first instinct was to bolt upright, just to confirm I was still there. As I turned to talk to the team, our eyes briefly locked with her intense gaze. After a split second, I looked away and nonchalantly resumed my conversation. She did not dare interrupt, but during a brief break, she pleaded in a hoarse, broken voice, "Ayu, I need you. Please do not walk out on me again, okay?" My resolve, however, did not waver for a single second. The second this crisis is resolved, I am gone. Her lips trembled as she gasped into silence. When it was finally my turn to rest, I repeated, "I am leaving once the job is done." Jiang Tiao's pale lips trembled, but she stayed quiet while I tried to get some rest. She stood over me like a silent guard, whispering, "Ayu, I am never giving up on us." Our corporate nightmare was far more dangerous than Xing Shaozi's scandal. It took a brutal, exhausting month for the chaos to settle and the dust to finally clear. When Jiang Tiao suggested a celebration, I had zero plans to go. I packed my things, ready to walk out, but she grabbed my wrist, pleading with me, "Can you at least have dinner with the team before leaving?" Xiao He chimed in to support her. "She is right, brother Chengyu. It has been forever since we were all together." The others joined in, begging me to stay, but I refused. I shook my head, saying, "Sorry, I have already booked my flight back." Hearing this, Jiang Tiao's face fell. Her heart sank into a dark abyss. I had planned my departure long before this. Even after working side by side with her for a month, I felt no pity for her. Jiang Tiao chased after me, panic in her voice, "Let me drive you to the airport." Xiao, he offered to get the car, but she barked a new order to cut him off. "No, you stay here and organize the celebration." I was already walking fast toward the exit. As I raised my hand to hail a taxi by the curb, another hand grabbed my wrist. She forced my arm back down, her brow furrowed in a desperate scowl. "I am taking you," she insisted. I shook my head. "There is no need." She whispered softly, "Please, stop rejecting me at every turn." I stared at the woman before me. It was undeniably the same face I knew, yet her actions were so different from my memories. She kept clinging to me, persistent as a shadow I could not shake. A heavy wave of regret started to wash over me. Why did I ever agree to come back here? Unable to withstand her stubborn persistence, I found myself sitting in Jiang Tiao's car once again. But unlike our usual routine of boss and employee, we were not in the back. Instead, she was behind the wheel, and I was in the passenger seat. I turned my head toward the window, feeling completely suffocated by the heavy tension between us. When I asked why I could not just sit in the back, she offered a flimsy excuse about the storm yesterday making it filthy. I knew she was spinning a blatant lie. "You did not even take the car out yesterday," I said. She muttered guiltily that she had lent it to a friend. I finally gave up, refusing to waste another breath. The car fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. I stared at the distant city lights streaking through the darkness, briefly flickering into existence before vanishing forever. The city's landmarks looked exactly as I remembered. People bustled about everywhere, their laughter and joy filling the night air as if absolutely nothing had changed. For one fleeting moment, a sense of profound disorientation swept over me. It felt as if everything that happened recently was nothing more than a fever dream. As if I had never walked away from Jiang Tiao, and was still that loyal assistant revolving my life around her. But I knew better than anyone that everything was different. The most radical change of all was my own heart. The heart that once skipped a beat at the mere sight of her now beat no differently than for a complete stranger. It turns out letting go happens in a single, silent instant. I was lost in thought when the sudden, violent screech of brakes and a piercing horn shattered the quiet. Before I could process what was happening, a brutal, bone-crushing impact slammed into us head-on. In that life-or-death split second, Jiang Tiao did not hesitate. She lunged across to shield me. She shielded me with her own body. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Was it pure, adrenaline-fueled terror, or was it love? No one could say for sure. My head took a violent blow against the frame, and my consciousness began to fade. Faintly, her weak, trembling voice reached my ears. "Ayu, I love you. I truly, deeply love you." I descended into a fever dream, feeling as if my body had been crushed by a massive boulder and cast into a dark, unforgiving ocean. I was drifting, sinking and rising aimlessly, numbed by the icy water. A relentless tide of agony washed over me. One moment, I felt like I was burning alive. The next, I was drowning in the freezing Arctic deep. I struggled with every fiber of my being, clawing my way toward the surface, desperate to escape this dark nightmare. A single, brilliant ray of light pierced the water and struck my eyes. Then, I finally snapped back to reality. My eyes flew open in a sterile room as I gasped for air. My lungs burned for oxygen. My throat was parched, stinging with a sharp, dry ache. That pain acted as an anchor, dragging back the memories of the nightmare before I blacked out. The crash on the way to the airport. The final image etched into my mind was Jiang Qiao holding me tight, taking the brunt of the impact. She had whispered something. I did not know if those words were real or just a desperate hallucination of my fading consciousness. In that terrifying, life-altering moment, did she actually say, "I love you"? My heart felt heavy, tangled in a web of conflicting emotions. Just then, a nurse pushed a clattering medical cart into the room to swap my IV. Seeing me awake, she smiled. A relieved smile broke across her face. "Sir, you are finally awake, thank goodness. If only your girlfriend could wake up as quickly as you did, that would be a miracle." Her words made me freeze. Girlfriend? She had to be referring to Jiang Qiao. I did not have the energy to correct her, so I quickly asked how she was doing. The nurse let out a heavy sigh. "She is still in critical condition, fighting for her life." My chest tightened painfully, as a wave of crushing guilt flooded my heart. Jiang Qiao had shielded me, taking the brunt of the impact. That is why I escaped with minor injuries. Why does she always do this, forcing me to feel forever indebted? Yet, I do not have the heartless resolve to turn a blind eye and walk away. Even if she had some ulterior motive, it does not change the fact that she saved my life. I have never been the type of person who likes owing anyone. After a long moment, I sighed heavily, my mind finally made up. I want to see her. Could you help me get to her room? Once she recovers, I will finally leave for good. The nurse gave me a sympathetic look and nodded. Understood, I will grab your IV pole. 10 minutes later, I stood outside the intensive care unit, looking through the cold glass of the viewing window. Jiang Qiao lay completely motionless on the hospital bed. Her eyes were tightly shut, and her face was paler than I had ever seen it. My heart hammered with a long-lost, sinking dread. I never wanted anyone to get hurt, especially not because of a sacrifice made for me. Sensing my anxiety, the nurse whispered, "Do not worry, she is going to pull through. Fate favors the kind-hearted." I forced a bitter, weak smile. It was true, her luck had always been extraordinarily good. For 8 long years, any project Jiang Qiao set her ambitious sights on would, without fail, end up firmly in her grasp. Every goal she chased was surpassed. Reporters used to ask her the secret to success. Asking, "President Jiang, what do you believe is your greatest stroke of luck?" And she would always reply, "IU is my greatest blessing. And my constant rock." To the world, we were the ultimate power duo. But every single time reporters asked President Jiang if she was my assistant, or lovers, Jiang Qiao would casually brush it off, saying we were just lifelong partners. It was no different now, when a nurse curiously remarked, "You two must have been together for ages. He clearly loves you deeply." But this time, I was the one denying it. I simply shook my head. "No, she does not love me, and she is not my girlfriend." Now the nurse looked completely stunned. She glanced back and forth between me and the unconscious Jiang Qiao behind the glass, clearly wanting to argue. But before she could say another word, the head nurse called her away. I stood alone outside the ward, fingertips pressed against the cold glass, staring at her. "Young Qiao, just wake up," I whispered. "I don't want to owe you anything." The moment I turned my back to walk away, her eyes slowly fluttered open, as if guided by some strange, unspoken telepathy. Her gaze drifted toward my retreating figure. Catching sight of me through her hazy, blurred vision, her mind slowly woke up. The very moment she realized I was safe, she fully focused on her aching body. Chengyu is unharmed, she thought, that is all that matters. Soon after I got back to my room, a nurse told me Miss Zhang had woken up and was moved to a regular room. I had only been gone a few minutes, but I hid my shock and rushed straight back to see Jiang Qiao. When I arrived, the doctor was just finishing his rounds, leaving her alone. The second I stepped inside, our eyes locked, and I walked straight to her bedside. Her arm was heavily bandaged, with fresh crimson blood seeping through the white gauze. Guilt stabbed at my chest like a jagged blade, twisting deeper and deeper. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "Thank you," I said. Since she was still on a ventilator, she couldn't speak a single word. She stayed completely silent, her eyes locked onto mine without blinking. I clenched my fists. "Jiang Qiao, I promise I won't leave your side until you are fully recovered." Hearing this, a spark of hope flickered in her dark eyes. I didn't notice the change, and frankly, I didn't care to pay attention. Over the next 2 weeks, I focused on my own recovery while constantly visiting Jiang Qiao to help the nurses care for her. The company's daily operations were temporarily left in the hands of Xiao He and our core team. Most days, I just sat on the couch by the window, focusing on my own work. But to Jiang Qiao, this was the presence she desperately craved. I was finally back where she could see me, sitting right by her side, close enough to touch. As her condition steadily improved, and her ventilator was finally removed, the first breath she took was to whisper my name. I watched quietly, offering no emotional response, as the doctors finished their rounds and left. Suddenly, she reached out and squeezed my hand. Her voice was incredibly raw and raspy as she whispered, "I am still not better yet." I froze. Completely bewildered. "Don't talk yet, just drink some warm water," I said softly, gently prying my hand from her grip. "Take it easy, just have a sip." With that, I stepped back, stood up, and poured her a fresh glass. As I handed it to her, the truth suddenly hit me like a bolt of lightning. I finally understood why she had blurted out that desperate, nonsensical line. It was because of my promise. I said I wouldn't leave until she was healed, and she was terrified that I would turn and vanish the moment she got better. Staring at her lying in that hospital bed, my mind became a chaotic mess of complicated, conflicting feelings. Confusing feelings I couldn't quite name. She had been stuck in this bed for over 2 weeks, visibly losing weight. As she weakly gripped the glass, her thin wrists and bony knuckles looked painfully prominent. Yet she seemed completely indifferent to her own fragile state, her eyes never drifting away from me for a second. This wasn't the woman I remembered. The Jiang Qiao I knew was sophisticated, mature, and stunning, a ruthless, high-flying CEO who always maintained a flawless, gorgeous image for the world. Right now, I realized it more than ever. She had fundamentally changed. And as for this sudden transformation, I honestly didn't know how to feel. Looking at this vulnerable, fragile side of her, I realized I wasn't as repulsed as before. But that was the limit of my sympathy. She set her glass on the nightstand, her fingertips hovering just inches from my forehead. She wanted to reach out, yet seemed frozen by the fear of rejection. "Chengyu, does it still hurt?" I shook my head, frowning at her own scarred, battered body. "Just worry about yourself." She pulled her hand back, a faint smile playing on her lips. "These past few days have made me truly happy," she mumbled, her lips curving slightly. I looked into her sharp, beautiful eyes, completely speechless. Suddenly, someone strode into the room, accompanied by a sharp female voice. "Chengyu, are you in here? How are your injuries?" We both turned to face the intruder at the same time. One of us was utterly confused, while the other radiated pure, icy hostility. "Gunanji, what are you doing here?" Jiang Qiao spat. Gunanji completely ignored her frigid stare. I stammered in surprise, "Gunanji? An auntie? Why did you come all this way?" Ignoring Jiang Qiao's lethal glare, Gunanji walked in with a playful smile, carrying flowers to place in the vase. "Little Xuan heard about the accident and wouldn't stop nagging me to check on you. I finally found some time to drop by." I froze. I hadn't told him because I didn't want him to worry. Gunanji shrugged. "You think the famous President Zheng could end up hospitalized after a major crash and nobody would notice? The internet is already buzzing with the news." She cast a mocking, playful glance at Jiang Qiao before looking back at me. "But why are you still here? Don't tell me you're getting back together." Jiang Qiao looked ready to explode and kick her out of the room, but she froze at those words. Before I could even speak, Gunanji smirked. "Just look at her right now. She looks so weak and pathetic. You would be much better off looking at me instead." I couldn't stand another second of this and snapped, "Enough. Stop talking absolute nonsense." Seeing Jiang Qiao's face darken with murderous rage made Gunanji's day. She was deliberately poking the bear, trying to get under her skin. Jiang Qiao had caused her nothing but trouble for years, and she wanted payback. Jiang Qiao had finally reached her absolute breaking point. She glared and spat out a single word, "Get out." Gunanji hadn't planned on staying long anyway. She gave me a casual wave and sauntered out, leaving the two of us alone again. Jiang Qiao stared at me, her deep eyes filled with a chaotic mess of emotions. I stayed quiet, letting a heavy silence fill the room. Soon, my phone began to buzz in my pocket. "I need to take this," I said. I stood up and headed for the door. Stepping out into the hallway, I let out a long, exhausted sigh. Whenever I am around Jiang Qiao, I can never truly let my guard down. My chest felt like it was being crushed under a heavy weight. The call was from Sheng Xiaozi. The moment I answered, his panicked voice crackled through the phone. "Chengyu, I heard you were in a car accident. Are you okay? How bad is it?" I tried to sound casual to calm him, but his voice remained panicked and breathless. "Chengyu, you were in a crash. Tell me you are okay." I laughed softly to ease his mind. "I am fine, really." I had not told a soul about the crash to avoid causing a panic. But like Gunanji said, with Zheng Chul being the other victim, it was only a matter of time before everyone found out. As long as my mother does not find out, I will be fine. She still thinks I am just away on a business trip. Xiao Zi immediately blurted out, "Where are you?" "I am coming to find you." When I told him I was still at the hospital, he froze. "I thought you said you were completely fine?" Are you just sugarcoating things so I do not worry? I quickly clarified. No, it is not that. It is because Jungkook's injuries are incredibly severe. She saved my life. So do not shout. I cannot bear to be indebted to her. Silence hung on the line for a few seconds before he spoke. Fine. I will drop by to see you in a little while. I thought you had already gone home, so I went out of town and did not check on you. I never imagined such a tragedy would happen. I reassured him, it is all right, I did not sustain any major injuries. Over the receiver, I could hear his manager calling out for Shang Xiaoze. You must be busy, right? He did not argue. I will see you tonight then. After hanging up, I headed back toward the ward. Right at the doorway, I witnessed a bizarre and disturbing sight. Jiang Qiao was actually pulling the IV needle straight out of her own hand. I burst through the door to stop her, shouting, Jiang Qiao, what on earth are you doing? She froze instantly, looking at me with a furrowed brow. Ah, you, her hand hung as blood began to ooze from the puncture wound. I rushed forward, grabbing her hand and pressing a tissue to the wound while slamming the emergency call button on the headboard. I glared at her, my heart racing. Jiang Qiao, have you lost your mind? She looked at me with a face full of desperate longing. Ah, you, please do not leave me, okay? A sudden spark of rage ignited within me. Am I not standing right here in front of you? No matter what, she should not resort to self-harm. Jiang Qiao fell silent, just staring at me. She was hurting herself like this, no matter the reason. Jiang Qiao stopped talking, keeping her eyes glued to mine as her other hand cautiously reached out to grasp my wrist. She did not dare use force, yet she refused to let go. Suddenly, a memory flashed back. It hit me that this was not the first time Jiang Qiao had issues with her IV needle, or claimed her medication was wrong. My expression darkened instantly. Those times you said you accidentally snagged the cord, were those all calculated lies too? Jiang Qiao completely ignored my question, whispering, I just wanted you to stay by my side a little longer. I opened my mouth to speak, then stopped. 1,000 words were choked up in my throat. Seeing the sheer desperation and anxiety in her eyes left a bitter taste in my mouth. How did Jiang Qiao ever end up like this? I looked her dead in the eye and spoke sternly. Jiang Qiao, if you ever pull a stunt like this again, I am done with you. Her pale lips trembled before she whispered. Okay. After a pause, she added softly. Ah, your hands are still so cold. I brushed it off indifferently. It does not matter, you get used to it. But I stiffened, instinctively trying to pull my hand away, but she held on tight. A flood of past memories surged through my mind, leaving me in total turmoil. Jiang Qiao spoke up again. Ah, please come back to me. Just then, a nurse rushed in. What happened? Is everything okay? I lied quickly. Her needle slipped out by accident. Could you please replace it for her? The nurse stepped over to inspect the damage, forcing Jiang Qiao to finally let go of my hand. As my warmth vanished from her palm, a hollow void opened up in her heart. She absolutely loathed that feeling of abandonment, but she had given me her word. She had no choice but to let things play out. Jiang Qiao spent 2 grueling months recovering in the hospital. No matter how much she tried to stall for time, the day of her discharge finally arrived. On the day we were to part ways, she insisted on driving me to the airport. I did not refuse, nor did I show any emotion. Inside the terminal, the boarding announcement blared over the speakers. Passengers for flight 46528, please proceed to the gate. I gripped my suitcase, my face a mask of indifference. The boarding call echoed through the airport again. All passengers for flight 46528, please prepare to board. I hoisted my luggage and gave her a final reminder, take care of yourself. Watching my retreating back move further away, she felt everything overlap with the moment I first left her. Panic surged within Jiang Qiao. She lunged forward, completely losing her self-control, and gripped my hand with a death-like clutch. Ah, I knit my brows and sighed in frustration. Jiang Qiao, it is time to move on. She held on tighter, refusing to let go. No, I cannot move on, and I never want to. Ah, I cannot survive losing you again. I gave her a single look before turning my head away. My resolve was ironclad. There was no way I was staying. I had to return home and let my mother know I was safe. Remaining here was absolutely out of the question. Otherwise, all my persistence over these past few days would just become one giant joke. I had genuinely moved on. At this very moment, my attitude toward Jungseo had softened slightly, but only enough that I did not despise her presence. Returning to how things used to be was absolutely impossible. She still failed to make me stay. Once again, she watched the plane ascend into the sky, staring at her empty palm as a hollow void carved through her chest. Xiao Hu spoke up at the perfect moment, President Zheng, please do not give up hope. I feel like Brother Chengyu's icy exterior is already starting to thaw. Jiang Qiao slowly lifted her eyes upon hearing that. Is that so? Back at my home in Yunnan, the moment my mother saw me, she immediately pulled me over to sit down. Chengyu, why did your trip take so long? You must be absolutely exhausted. Go rest. A warm feeling filled my chest as I smiled and shook my head. I am not tired, it just took a bit more time than expected. She gently stroked my hair, her eyes overflowing with maternal concern. You say you are not tired, but I do not believe you. You never complain about hard work. What do you want for dinner? I will cook whatever you like. I answered sincerely, anything you cook is my favorite, Mom. She beamed with joy. Good, good, she laughed, heading toward the kitchen. As she walked off, my gaze drifted toward a corner of the living room where a pile of unfamiliar items was stacked. My curiosity piqued. I asked, Mom, what are those? My mother followed my gaze to the corner and casually replied, those packages arrived a while ago. They are addressed to you, so I just set them aside for now, waiting for you to return and check them. I froze for a second. Gifts for me? I began to unbox them one by one. A fountain pen, some sparklers, and an empty manila folder and a vintage-style tie clip. At first glance, it looked like completely useless junk, almost like a prank played by a stranger. Confused, I sifted through the boxes and checked the sender's info. It was no longer anonymous, but clearly bore 3 unmistakable words. Jiang Qiao. Tucked at the very bottom was a handwritten note. Ah you. I was far too arrogant and self-centered in the past, never considering your feelings. I am so sorry. If you still remember what these objects represent, please try to believe my love for you is no empty lie. That elegant flowing calligraphy was undeniably penned by Jiang Qiao himself. I stood there dazed, staring blankly at the collection of keepsakes. Suddenly, their weight crashed over me, and the hidden meaning of each one became crystal clear. The fountain pen was my first gift to her. The sparklers were from the night we celebrated our first big business win. That empty folder proved that even through her cold silence, Jiang Qiao had cherished every single memory of me. I couldn't snap out of my daze for the longest time. A sharp, bitter pang suddenly welled up in my chest. Hesitantly, I pulled out my phone, pulled up Jiang Qi's contact info, and typed out a message. Jiang Qiao, what is the point of sending all this? Her reply came instantly, yet she dodged the question. Because I love you. I stared at the screen in silence for an eternity. Ultimately, I chose not to reply, setting the phone aside. If your feelings are truly genuine, then let time be the judge of everything. Jiang Qiao, we have a long road ahead.